world of digital transactions, we've all heard of buying and selling clothes online, buying and selling essentials and electronics online. But what if I told you that you could buy and sell businesses online? Well, yes, you heard that right. And that's where a platform like Flippa comes in. With over 3 million users globally, it's essentially a platform for entrepreneurs who are looking to exit successfully and for investors looking at returns. But how does it really work? Is it that simple? What about transparency? To answer all this and a lot more, I have with me a very special guest. The CEO of Flippa has been kind enough to join us. Blake Hutchison now joins us. Blake, good to have you with us. Thank you so much for speaking to us here at Business Insider India.
Thank you so much for having me, Ritma. It's going to be a great discussion. Thanks again.
Well, I hope so. We hope to have a very insightful conversation, learn a lot more about Flippa, its expansion plans, and also more importantly, what's in it for the Indian consumer and Indian viewer as well. But let's really begin from the start, right? A marketplace for businesses. We really haven't heard that before. So why don't we begin from how did this idea come into place? What was the objective behind getting Flippa on board?
So Flippa has been around for 15 years. And back then, two visionary founders, Mark and Matt, did have this global vision to enable entrepreneurs to exit and sell their companies. Now, of course, 15 years ago, there were very few established online businesses and digital assets. But now, today in 2024, clearly the digital economy has evolved a lot. And so we've been benefited by and blessed by this unique history that we have. Long story short, the mission is to enable exits and really democratize that mergers and acquisition process, which has been reserved for so few people around the world, and make that more accessible to so many more.
So, when I introduced the segment and when I introduced Flippa, I said it's essentially a platform for entrepreneurs to exit and for investors who are looking at returns, right? So what is the processes for businesses essentially to list on Flippa? Say if I'm a business, what is the protocol going to be for me if I want to list on your platform?
Yeah, so we start from the very basic. Obviously, our platform is designed to help business owners sell their businesses, and it's designed to help investors buy and acquire businesses. The process from that point is really about three things. One, getting a valuation for your business. So that is about understanding the revenue performance, the overall financial health of a business, the operations that are involved in running a business day to day, and then of course the business model and the category. And the business model would be something like SaaS, software as a service, e-commerce, apps by both iOS and Android, and a multitude of others. Category would be something like travel or finance or health or well-being. And of course, all of these things will go into the process of understanding the value of a business and giving a business owner and entrepreneur an accurate estimate. We're of course benefited by having 15 years worth of sales data, and we do just in excess of 12,000 transactions per annum. So we can take that data and then provide very well-informed estimates back to entrepreneurs. At that point in time, they will choose to list. The listing process is about building an information memorandum and doing that digitally, using our platform to connect to different data sources like Stripe or Shopify or PayPal or Amazon or BigCommerce or Xero or QuickBooks Online. All of these platforms that govern digital assets enable us to pull down the data, expose that data, and then of course merchandise to relevant buyers. So we're now in that third step, and that's where buyers will be coming into the platform and they'll be perusing and searching for assets and businesses that match their buying mandate. At that point in time, negotiation begins. They're below the surface of the Flippa platform, and within that we have a multitude of different services. We have our advisory service, we have the due diligence service, we have all of that data there that they can expose and look at and then make informed judgments as to the performance of the asset. We also have legal services built in throughout the platform too. So it's super comprehensive, but number one, get a valuation, two, list, and three, negotiate.
Wonderful. That sounds wonderful. That actually helps me understand a lot in terms of how businesses go through various checks and balances, and then what is the kind of options for them in terms of their own negotiation as well, right? So that also helps them get a fair and transparent price for them. But the next question, and this is obviously more from an industry perspective and from a platform perspective as well, which is that today businesses is, selling is a lot more than money, right? When you get into a partnership like this, you obviously want trust and you want transparency, right? So how are you ensuring that the money that is exchanged, one, it's given on time, there are no loopholes that are missed? How do you ensure that there is transparency and trust on both sides?
Yeah, this is a really important process of the platform that we've built, and it's something that we want to make sure that business owners and investors understand all over the world. So the first thing that we do is have the legal services built inside the platform, and that means that people can create binding agreements, be it a stock purchase or share purchase agreement or an asset purchase agreement. And Ritma, there are two ways in which most businesses are acquired. In some cases, they are purchased on the basis of a share sale. In other cases, they're purchased on the basis of assets being sold. In either case, Flippa has a platform which will provide binding agreements to both parties. You can issue those agreements on the platform. You can also sign those agreements with the platform. That's kind of step one, having a legal agreement in place. The second step is, of course, ensuring that funds are transferred securely and safely. So outside of the data, outside of the due diligence, outside of those agreements which we've just spoken about, the last step in the process, and of course that critical step, is ensuring that an investor's funds are protected and ensuring that an entrepreneur can receive those funds. And so we have a combination of services on the platform. We have integrated agreements with escrow.com, and we also have a trust account facility. Both of those facilities are integrated within the platform, and then we have visibility over those funds, and we can see and cite those funds and protect those funds for what is called an inspection period. The inspection period essentially ensures that the investor gets what they intend to pay for, and of course, once released, ensures that the entrepreneur receives those funds, having Flippa being in possession of those funds. And so it really is end to end. It really is very safe, and it really does come with lots of checks and balances to ensure that deals are done well on the platform.
So, Blake, you mentioned about the inspection period. Is that a specific amount that you use, or say a number of days, etc., for every business, or does it vary? That's one. Secondly, is there a fee for businesses if they want to list on your platform?
Yeah, it's a great question. The inspection period, Ritma, does vary. And that is because businesses come with different levels of complexity. So let's say, for argument's sake, it was a publishing business. Let's say it's an online blog. Then, of course, the inspection period is pretty short. Typically, it will be between 7 or 14 days. And that's because ultimately, the investor can take possession of the domain. They can take possession of what is typically the WordPress account. They can validate the traffic using Google Analytics, and they can ensure that all is in order with the hosting account. So that's relatively straightforward. If it's something more complex, like an e-commerce business where perhaps there are employee agreements at stake, perhaps there's even a warehouse with inventory within it, then the inspection period can be a little bit longer, typically 21 days and up to 45 days. And that ensures that beyond the due diligence process, everything is in order. As it relates to your second question, which I think relates to the fees and pricing of the Flippa platform, the core to our business is success related. So when an entrepreneur successfully exits, Flippa will charge a fee. That is a variable fee. The smaller businesses that sell on the platform will pay up to 10%. And the bigger businesses on the platform can pay as low as 4%. So it is variable and it's based on the size of the deal.
Okay, so that's good to know. So it depends on the size of the business. Smaller the business, you said about 10%, and the larger the business can go about 4%. Okay, that helps me understand how this works. And the next question that I want to ask you is, again, something that I said when I introduced the segment, that this is a platform that helps entrepreneurs who are looking to exit successfully, right? But the common perception, or I don't know, maybe a myth or sorts, is that exits are usually for unicorns. Is that true? Is that true in today's scenario? And this, of course, has a big India connect as well, right? India is seeing unicorns being added by the days, right? So this becomes very interesting, that are only unicorns looking to exit, or are you busting that myth for us today?
Yeah, completely busting that myth, actually, Ritma. The exciting thing is that an exit opportunity is available for a good quality business, regardless of size. And so, of course, unicorns receive a lot of media. Unicorns are, of course, those businesses that are being valued in excess of $1 billion, and therefore they're either very well funded or big and mature and optimized to a level that makes them worth that amount. Instead, Flippa enables that opportunity for all business owners, regardless of size. So we see deals as small as $10,000, and we see deals up to $30 million. So it is really a wide spectrum. And of course, that's what makes us both a platform and a marketplace. It's price agnostic. It's about democratizing access to the exit. And it really is a platform for all entrepreneurs, wherever they are in the world and regardless of size.
Interesting. The other aspect, Blake, that I wanted to discuss, where no conversation today is really possible without it, which is the role of technology, right? Whether it's artificial intelligence or any other evolving technology, it is here to make our lives easier. And every evolving technology, of course, has its own, initial stages where you don't know how to use it. But once it's put to use, the idea is, can you make it more effective? Can you make it more productive? So how are you using technology to make buying and selling more effective?
There's really two pieces here. One relates to the selling of the business, presenting the business for sale, and the other one relates to ensuring that the right buyers are matched to the right assets. Right. And of course, presenting a business for sale is a unique skill. Those who have either raised capital before or been through multiple exits, they're going to be more experienced, and therefore it's less difficult for them. But if you've never done it before, it's quite a foreign experience. And so what we do is we help people merchandise and present their businesses through the use of that data connectivity and then the AI to essentially write a programmatic IM, an information memorandum, present that as best as it can possibly be presented to the world of investors out there. Because talking about what your business does is easy. Talking about what your business does in the context of selling it to somebody else is actually quite difficult. So that's kind of piece one as it relates to use of AI. The second piece relates to matching, and this is really the power play. We do 425,000 programmatic matches each week, and those matches are a function of our AI matching algorithm. And that really is two graph neural networks. The graph neural network sits on top of the supply side and the demand side. Demand side is the investors, the buyers out there. And we're looking for similarities between those buyers to try to predict what other assets they might be interested in. And on the supply side, we're looking at likeness between assets. So where there is a substantial similarity between one asset and another, we can infer that buyers of those assets would be interested in assets that are substantially similar. Once we've figured those two things out, we bring those two graph neural networks together, the match begins, and that's where we start to notify investors of the deals that are on the platform. And that's been hugely powerful for us. Ritma, we started that back in February of 2023. It continues to get smarter. The matches continue to become more accurate.
Wow, that's actually quite a very detailed process for you to, in a way, curate what both sides are also looking at for them to get their best price. But Blake, I still come back to the larger question, right? When you speak of someone, like today, we live our lives in the digital world. So it's easy for me to say buy groceries, buy clothes online. But when I think of buying and selling a business, the first question that comes to me is that the digital platforms are completely full of financial frauds, financial risks as well, right? So how do I ensure I put that thought behind myself?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So piece one, which we've touched on a little bit, is that Flippa's connected to 15 different data integrations. We pull that financial and traffic and operational performance information straight out of the source. The second thing we do, because it's funny, we just spoke about the power of technology and AI, but the second thing we do is we layer upon a marketplace integrity team. And that team is there to validate the assets and verify those financial records. So the technology aspect lives and breathes and is very powerful. But on top of that, we trust that human resource layer, which ensures that the data that we've pulled down is in fact an accurate representation of the business's performance. Those two layers combined create for a very safe experience.
Lovely. So, Blake, when you hear about a platform, data is one side, statistics are one side, case studies are the other, right? And that's where I want to understand from you. Can you talk to us about a case study where, it was a success case story, but it exceeded expectations from both sides? Because that will also help us understand what's it in for businesses who are looking to list on your platform.
Yeah, I'll give you two very quick ones because they're both very different, and I think people can probably see a different perspective. Number one relates to an individual by the name of John Chen. And John was a hedge fund intern in New York City, a relatively young guy, and he wanted to start to move into M&A himself. So he bought something relatively small on Flippa. It cost him $7,500. So that would be at the low end of the Flippa marketplace. Just 18 months later, he had scaled that business and he used the Flippa platform to exit that business for $550,000.
Oh, wow.
So from $7,500 acquisition to a $550,000 exit, he's not only developed his skill set as an e-commerce entrepreneur, but he's in turn been able to exit for a good mid six-figure sum. And as a result of that, he's been able to move on to his next step of his entrepreneurial life. So I think that's, evident what you can do by starting small and moving up the value chain.
I think that's very well said that, you have the option to start small and then you move up as you get more experience, as you understand the market. And as you rightly said, it helps you kickstart your next venture as well after you exit one successfully. Blake, the other aspect that I want to understand, of course, from you is the kind of demographics or geographies that you're serving currently, right? So if you could talk to me about the top 2-3 countries where you're seeing a lot of business coming from. Also, I want to understand within that representation, are you seeing a gender representation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the first thing I should say is that we are truly global. So we, represent in excess of 110 countries on the platform. So it's very global and it does represent entrepreneurs from all over the place. Now, India is actually one of our biggest markets. So it's great to be able to watch the thriving entrepreneurial scene that is India play out on the Flippa platform. Now, as it relates to the biggest market, I guess as you would maybe expect, Ritma, North America, the USA is number one, and that is shortly followed by the UK. Now, from there, we do have quite a long tail, and certainly India is within the top 10 countries represented on the Flippa platform. As it relates to gender, yeah, I mean, it is... unfortunately, you do see around 80% of transactions on the Flippa platform represented by male business owners. And clearly there is still a lack of diversity on the Flippa platform and broadly in M&A. What we will say, however, is that for the female owned and run businesses that list on the platform, they actually convert at a slightly higher rate. And so perhaps that's a great signal for the female business owners and entrepreneurs out there. The businesses that great female business owners create around the world do receive a lot of attention on a platform like Flippa. So I'd be highly encouraging of female entrepreneurs wherever you are around the world to utilize the Flippa platform.
That's a great pitch. So all the female entrepreneurs out there, there is a message for you from the Flippa CEO. If you do list on the platform, you can look at a higher, either an exit route or an investor, either way. But coming back to the India conversation and India perspective, Blake, I want to understand how's the India story shaping up for you? Are you seeing a lot of interest as far as the Indian market is concerned? Are you seeing buyers, investors? What is the plan as far as India is concerned?
I would say that as it relates to India, and of course, we're a two-sided marketplace. So we have the entrepreneurs on one side, we have the investors and buyers on the other. So at the moment, our Indian marketplace is dominated by the entrepreneur side. So we see more business owners list for sale, and we see less investors and buyers utilize the platform right now. And I must admit, I can't really explain why that is. I'm sure you have a better sense of that than I have. But the good news is that, like all markets that Flippa represents, the Indian market is growing for us. And that's been really, really positive and encouraging over the last 24 months. I think what's really interesting about India is that the maturation of the entrepreneur set is fast. And so we're seeing businesses of a higher value come out of India over a shorter period of time. So it used to be that we mostly saw 5-figure businesses come out of India. We now see 6- and 7-figure businesses coming out of India. And I think that trend's likely to continue. I mean, the reality is you're talking about one of the most entrepreneurial economies in the world. And of course, we look to benefit from that. So we're very excited about our India traction.
We're also extremely excited about how we see the India story shape up as far as Flippa is concerned. And that's also the perfect wrap to this conversation. Blake, thank you so much for taking out the time, joining us, and also helping us understand not just the global perspective, but what's in it for India as well. Here's wishing you on the platform the very best and hoping to speak to you soon.
Thank you so much.